Welcome back to the Wounded Healer. In week 3, we're going to look at how we can respond to all the ills and troubles and struggles that people in the world today are dealing with. How we, in faith, how we out of our discipleship can respond, not only as individuals, but also as a church. Last week, we looked at some of the common things that people are dealing with today, and in part how they connect back to what Nouwen writes about in the Wounded Healer. We looked at a number of those, from a fatherless generation to being disconnected from our past, not having role models and people to look up to, lack of trust in institutions and authority. As believers, these are some realities of our world today that we have to address. Just this week, I was reading an article that someone wrote in a major national newspaper about their very difficult upbringing in an extreme religious Christian group. Not a group like our church, but a group where if you disagree with what the pastor says, you're out, or you're shunned in some way, and you're not allowed to even interact with people who don't attend your church or a church just like yours, and you're told that religion equates to one particular political view, and no questions are welcome, no disagreements welcome, no gray areas are welcome. And this person, as an adult, is writing now as a parent, and they're grappling with how to share, if at all, faith with their child, given the really abusive experience of worship that they had as a child. These are some of the things that are a part of the world today that we may not be as aware of in the neighborhoods that we live in. But in fact, a lot of people don't have a positive view of religion as the source of answers to their questions and to their struggles. They just see what's on TV. They see scandals on TV, or they see pastors who are using church or religion to get rich. I see these things, and it bothers me deeply. And I think it makes it so much harder for us to encounter people without baggage and to offer them the healing that can come with a relationship with Christ and being part of a community of believers. I want to share with you something from Mark that I think is a great place to think about how we can be empowered and have the resources that we need to engage the world with healing. We may just want to rush out there and volunteer everywhere, or just immediately say to folks, hey, here's what God can do for you, or here's what God did for me. And that's one response we have, I think, to be reactive and to maybe be over-aggressive in the externals of our faith. Another reaction we might have would be to say, wow, anything I do in the name of Jesus in the community could be misconstrued, or someone could say I'm being offensive, or I'm being overbearing, or I'm bringing faith into the workplace in some uncomfortable way. So I'm just not going to do that. I'm just going to play it safe, and I'm just going to focus on reading my Bible and praying and my personal relationship with God, and I'm just going to turn it all inward into me and Jesus kind of relationship, where I find the peace I need, but I don't risk bothering someone or offending someone, and that kind of extreme internal reaction. So there's kind of two sides of this. There's the extreme externals of, hey, we got to get out there and show who Jesus really is to people because they're not getting the real picture. And then there's the opposite of just turning inward. Well, I want to share with you a great text from Mark 135 that I think can guide us to looking at this maybe a little more nuanced than A or B as our response. And I love this because it shows us how much Jesus appreciated and respected and embraced spiritual disciplines. When we hear the word discipline, we kind of have a negative connotation for that. But let me tell you this. When I hear the word spiritual discipline, the next word that comes to my mind is joy. The next word that comes to my mind is productivity. The next word that comes to my mind is peace. The next word that comes to my mind is fullness and a sense of being filled with God. All those are really good things that to me always follow my spiritual disciplines. Just this morning I was reading in the Bible, my devotional for the day, and I just had to share it with some other people that I work out with because it just touched me. And it was talking about how we are more than conquerors in Christ. It's a great text from Paul that through the love of Christ we are more than conquerors. And the person was talking about how what that means is that when we have God with us, we can experience challenges as an opportunity to experience the power of God. He said some people see a huge wave coming at them in the ocean and they're terrified. They're just going to get knocked over. They're going to get drowned. Another person sees that and says, dude, I'm going to surf that wave. That is going to be awesome, because they're not intimidated, because they know how to navigate it. They're looking at the same wave. One person is in absolute terror. The other one's like, man, let's do this. Let's do this. And Paul is saying that if we have Christ in our lives, we can be like that. When we see tidal waves coming at us, we can be like, hey, God got me through this. He got me through this. He got me through this. I can handle this. In fact, this is going to bring God glory. It's going to remind me to pray. I'm going to give this to God. And it's going to be a witness to people to see what God can do. And for me to be reminded of what God can do. Because I trust God. I'm not afraid of that wave. What's that wave compared to God? It's just like a little drip of water. And when we have the spiritual disciplines going in our lives, it changes the way we see things every day. So I read that this morning and I started thinking about challenges that I'm facing. I'm like, man, I'm glad I have those challenges. I need those challenges because they help me experience God. They help me experience God. I think of the things that happen, the challenges I experienced in the church, personal life, and I think, those turn me to God. And then I see how faithful God is when I turn them over to God. And then I have this just thanksgiving and joy that I've got God. I'm good. I'm good. Here's how Jesus did that. Let's look at his spiritual disciplines, okay? We're going to look at Mark chapter 1, verse 35. In the morning, while it was still very dark, Jesus got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. Man, you really need to write that on your heart, okay? Nighttime, you're exhausted, you're tired, you're beat down. The only thing you're preparing for late at night is going to bed. And Jesus didn't need to be prayed up so that he could sleep righteously. What he needed to be prayed up for is so that he could live and minister righteously. And so he sets this great example for us of starting the day with the most important thing, starting the day with the most important person, starting the day with getting our head right and straight on who we are, whose we are, and why we are, what's our purpose. And Jesus got that. It's like, hey man, I need to connect with the Father so that I can be filled with the power, the discernment, the conviction that I need to do what he wants me to do today, because he's the only one that matters. I think about a group of soldiers early in the morning. They yell, fall in, and they all go running out there. And the commanding officer comes out and says, all right, for today, here's what we're going to do. And they get their marching orders. Jesus knew how to get his marching orders. We need to know how to get our marching orders. In the morning, while it was still dark, he got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. At this point in my ministry, faith is becoming more and more simplified to me to just one thing: doing what Jesus did. I don't have to understand it. There could be mystery involved. There could be things that I don't know how they work. But you know what? I trust Jesus. When I do what he does, things work out. Things work out. And I'm blessed by it, and the people around me are blessed. In the morning, while it was still dark, he got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. How do you start your day out? Let me tell you, when you start your day out like this, you always have a better day. When you start your day off like this, your day is always better. Is there anyone in the room right here? Is there anyone in your small group who doesn't want to have a better day tomorrow? Come on. In the morning, while it was still dark, you're right, I'm reading it again. It's important. He got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. And Simon and his companions hunted for him. When they found him, they said to him, hey, everyone's searching for you. He answered, let us go to the neighboring town so that I may proclaim the message there also, for that is what I came out to do. And he went through Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons. All right, so he started with God. He got clarity on what he was supposed to be doing. He told the disciples, hey, here's what's on tap today. I just talked to God. This is what we got going today. Not only do I know what to do, but because I spent time with God, I got the power to do it. A leper came to him, verse 40, begging him and kneeling. He said to him, "If you choose, you can make me clean." Moved with pity, I'm convinced because he had started in prayer and God had tenderized his heart. Hey, when I don't start with prayer, my heart's not very tender. My heart's not very sensitive. Heck, I don't even notice the people around me a lot of times. If I'm on my way to eat lunch, or if I'm on my way to the store, or if I'm at the store, if I'm just out in public, if it's not someone that's kind of in my task list, I don't even notice people a lot of times. I'm just like trying to get from A to B. But when I start the day off by putting on kind of the eyes of Jesus, right? And then suddenly, because I prayed first, I was in the Bible first, it's like my eyes are taken away, and instead I have the eyes of Christ, who sees everyone, who sees their need, who sees their struggle, who sees opportunity to intersect with people in a way that would bless them. It may not be an hour-long conversation. It could just be saying, "Hey, how are you?" And then they say, "Oh, I'm okay." And you say, "No, really, I'm interested. How are you? I can tell maybe something's going on just by the look on your face, and I care. Are you okay?" I mean, just that one thing so someone knows they're seen, they're not alone. Someone cares. Jesus had his heart tenderized, I'm convinced, by his time with the Father. It says in verse 41, he was moved with pity. Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him. Man, this is key. This is key, okay? He saw the man. He listened to the man. He touched the man. Now, I get that we live in a world where this is a sensitive, charged issue about touching people, and I try to talk to our staff and other young pastors that I meet about how to do this in a way that's appropriate and that genuinely conveys concern. The master of the old side hug, or just to put my hand on someone's back right here in this area and just say, hey, I'm praying for you. I care about you. Jesus, I mean, this is a master class on emotional healing and offering emotional healing. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be a prophet. You don't have to be a miracle worker. And on top of that, this is someone that no one else touched. Don't miss this. This guy has a skin disorder. Do you think they understood anything about that? These people were outcast. Jesus is touching someone that no one else would touch. He listens, he sees, he touches. Let me tell you, it's in what he does that the love is shown. All right? And how did that all start? He got his head right. He knew what was most important because he started with God. Jesus reached out his hand and touched him and said, I do choose, because the man had said, if you choose, you can make me clean. Jesus said, I do choose, be made clean. Immediately the leprosy left him and he was made clean. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Hey, with the world that we're in, we can certainly maybe be pushed or intimidated, or maybe just because we worry about what people will think of us, to have this kind of turned inward faith that really impacts no one, okay? We could excuse ourselves for that by saying we're shy or we're introverts. We could excuse ourselves for that by saying, well, someone might be offended in the world we live in today or whatever. But there's no getting around the fact that red letters, Jesus said we're called to be the salt of the earth, right? Salt touches the food, all right? And it changes the food. It changes its flavor. Jesus said we're to be the light of the world, right? Not to hide our light under a basket, but Jesus, my light's shy. My light's introverted. My light doesn't want to offend someone. My light, thinks that someone might not like what I'm saying. My light, no. We can't look at the world and say, hey, it's broken, but, I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just going to complain about it. We have to be that, but we have to do it in a way that starts with God, all right? So yes, just turning inward, not acceptable. Just turning outward's not acceptable either. Because when we do it and we're not under the hand of God, we'll often do it in ways that are really about us. about showing how religious we are, about our own Messiah complex, that we're going to save, we're going to save people. Pastors are the worst at this. We can be people pleasers. We want to help people. We want to save people. When really we can save no one. We can't save ourselves. But we can tell people who can save them. We can point people to the person who saves, and that's Jesus. But when we do that without starting with this inner life with Christ, it's usually a lot more about us, about our needs being met, our need to be seen as the person who helps and saves. But when you start with God, God reminds you really quickly, hey, this isn't about you. It's not for you. If you can do it without getting credit, if you can do it without being seen, even better. But this is about blessing other people. Let me ask you for your discussion. Take a look at this text. It's a great one because it pairs the inner life of Jesus with the outward ministry of Jesus. And those things need to go together. Which way do you tend to fall? Like get out there and do it for Jesus, or turn inward and seek Jesus? Which one of those is kind of your natural setting? And could it be that you're being called to something beyond either A or B? This isn't a binary thing, but that rather our external service in the world must emerge and organically grow out of the seed in the soil of our spiritual relationship with God, so that we know it's for God, it's guided by God, it's chosen by God, it's driven by God. And in some ways that we have God making sure it's about Him, but also that it doesn't stop there, that it's got to be out in the world so that we're making a difference. Which one do you kind of err to? And so maybe the other part of that equation you need to add. Talk about that in your group, and we'll see how we can put those two things together and be much more effective in our ministry in the world.